It's really one of the greatest pieces of American cinema in our history. It's really a piece of world cinema. And so I think the shooting, the technical skill, the narrative, it's almost like a mystery thing, like you're trying to figure out what's going on. So it unravels to you that this whole purpose of Shaw is to be an assassin, and he's being handled. So you see that Condon has taken things from the real world, put them into fiction, but they're I did a talk fiction as fact. Like these are he's smart. Like he this isn't a guy, and it's also he's including some of the known things of kind of literal mind control, NLP, post hypnotic suggestion, handling, medical facilities that externally look normal, but they have wings in them. These are very common things. These happen at McGill, Georgetown, Tulane. Almost every major facility was turned to like having these kind of like wings and side things that have all been hidden from history. But Condon seemed to know about it. So credit my hat. I tip my hat to Condon as a really great source. There's a reason why he wrote the intro to Operation Mind Control that came out that was written by Bauer. So that element of it. So like some like people have called this a piece of entertainment, and I think that's the genre or the category. But some entertainment is trying to reveal to you some of the stuff that happens, whether it's Eyes Wide Shut or maybe other intrigue stuff or stories like 3 Days of the Condor, where they're trying to expose, espionage and global politics, geopolitics, and the dark side of that, the global octopus. And I think this is one of those movies in that genre that the involvement of JFK, literally what happened to JFK is rhymes with this film. So there's very many, many reasons why you should watch this movie. And they're all very good reasons. So check out the Manchurian Candidate. 62. If you want to see a piece of bad cinema, watch the one with Denzel Washington, who I love Denzel Washington, but it's not anywhere close. It's like it's nowhere close to this, to the greatness of the original 62 Manchurian Candidate.
I'm here with William Ramsey from William Ramsey Investigates. So, William, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite. Good to be with you again.
Great, great, fantastic. So, I watched the Manchurian Candidate, and it was a great film, the 1962 version. I haven't read the book. What can you tell us about the Manchurian Candidate as an introduction? Why is this movie important to you?
I think it's very important because the writing and what went into it's based upon a book by Richard Condon from 1959. But the information that went in was kind of like information that goes into detail about mind control. He actually quoted real studies into kind of human behavioral modification. And so this film has that. So this arc of the film is this idea of somebody being put into Manchuria, which was the Iron Curtain or communist bloc, and then brought back to the United States to perform a political assassination. And here in the States, we've had political assassinations within the last year, two attempts on President Trump. And then I have to think that this Charlie Kirk assassination that happened September 10th, it's only been like a month and a week ago, was a political assassination. He was very much politically involved. He has to be seen as a political figure. So I think it's very important. So this concept of political assassination, the book was published in 59 by Condon. Condon would later go on to write the introduction to probably one of the more important books on mind control called Operation Mind Control by Walter Bauer, that was published later. It's really a remarkable book considering the research Bauer did without the internet. But Condon, like I said, then the film came out in 62. And it's a
Hmm.
very important time in U.S. history. It was right before the JFK assassination that took place a year later. And one of the things that's interesting about the film is so many important people were involved in the like making of. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
There were like so many important people involved in the making of the film. Sinatra, uh, Janet Leigh had come off of Psycho, so she had been working with Hitchcock. Um, and there was Lawrence Harvey was kind of an important actor at the time. So there was a lot of really interesting things in this film. And the director was John Frankenheimer at 62. He's kind of enlisted to do it. He came from kind of a TV background, but his style was perfect for this film because it has really complex sequences. But then the JFK is a political assassination. JFK is shot by a rifle. These are like things that are emulated in this book and film, strangely, and a kind of patsy. This guy Lee Harvey Oswald, who people really thought was a communist agent at the time, but he was just a patsy. So it emulates, it syncs up and emulates with this film. And then what's interesting about this film, it was also approved and kind of greenlit with the assistance of JFK. So
JFK read the book, right? He was
correct. He would like to read like spy novels and stuff like that. He liked Ian Fleming, he liked Bond. So he liked this. He wanted it made, and kind of his imprimaturs on this were because the financing was done through a friend of his in Hollywood. And so it got budgeted and green kind of lit with his involvement. And even Sinatra in recorded interviews has said JFK wanted to know the facts of the play of the film as it was being made. And it's interesting because he was also involved in another film that involved kind of a coup, U.S. coup called, and that film was called 7 Days in May, and that actually came out after his assassination in January of 1964. So it just shows his involvement in the culture, and I think that's a common theme that's often overlooked in the U.S. is some of these presidents are involved in creating or assisting the creation of films and books, things that kind of uh, help bring bring out topics that they want, whether it's Pearl Harbor or things like that. So I think that JFK's involvement was he was trying to get the stuff that maybe he knew that was taking place behind the scenes. He had just fired the head of MK Ultra, or the guy who started MK Ultra. His name was Alan Dulles. He was fired in 1961 by JFK because of the Pay of Pigs thing. Alan Dulles was a very important figure for a wide variety of reasons. His brother was the Secretary of State. He also had family members. He and his brother basically ran U.S. foreign policy all the way up until 1961, probably from the 50s. And it's a remarkable kind of familial power block. It's these guys. So this kind of MK Ultra mind control thing was in the background. It's often in the background of JFK's history, believe it or not. It shouldn't be, but so this film kind of caught my eye. I had done work on another kind of strange piece of culture creation in the U.S., a book by the name of The Catcher in the Rye, which two assassins, famous American assassins, had a kind of fixation with. One was Mark David Chapman, who was blamed for killing John Lennon, and then 4 months later, this guy Hinckley was loved the book, and then he took shots and almost killed Ronald Reagan right at the beginning of Reagan's um, term in 1981. So these are important, and so I saw these as kind of like these are kind of like benchmarks or watermarks in our history of American history that were really important. But one of the interesting things about Manchurian Candidate is that it was taken after JFK was killed. It was taken out of distribution and it was seen very few times for about 25 years. It was re-released. And then one of the interesting things too is it was considered a masterpiece. It really was on for a while. It got knocked off recently, but for a while was considered one of the best 100 American films ever made. And I think that it is. And I think Condon was really keyed into a lot of the early literature of the 50s, the post World War II literature about behavior modification. What was going on in the Korean War? The Korean War was from 1950 to 53. It was a very serious war post World War II. Like literally the entire country was leveled and bombed, and there were huge swings. I mean, the parallel still there today. There's actually the division between North and South Korea is still extant from this war 75 years ago. So it had a real effect on American culture, and people were interested in a lot of POWs and things like that, people who come back for the communist bloc with like ideas. So there were a lot of studies and a lot of public articles and a lot of involvement of people in this kind of in the interest of trying to figure out what was going on with mind control at the time. Yeah.
You know, are you still there, William? Hello?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm here.
sorry.
I'm
Oh,
just
sorry. Sorry.
wiping my nose.
Oh, sorry. There's a guy that was involved in a William Joseph Byron, Dr. William Joseph Byron. I think he was an expert in mind control. He was a consultant on this movie. Do
Yeah,
you
his
what?
name is William Joseph Bryan, Bryan
Right. Okay. So what was he's involved?
Jr.
Why was he involved in this? Oh,
It's
other than
because
that,
that
yeah.
was his expertise. He was a expert hypnotist. That's what he did for a living, was like being involved in hypnotism. And he was friends, or allegedly friends, with Sinatra.
Hmm.
And so it makes perfect sense that somebody involved in that kind of trade would be around this film. And he was actually involved in other films, believe it or not. He was involved in a Tales of Terror that involved kind of hypnotism, and also an early Francis Ford Coppola film. I think it was his first film. It was called Dementia 13. So he was a consultant. He had an office on Sunset Boulevard, where he would, treat clients. He would treat famous people. I think one of the guys, Aldo Ray or Aldo Moore, I can't remember. He was a famous star back in the day. But I think his consultancy, he's there behind the scenes, and he's mentioned in multiple books. So I put an article out on my Substack. Half of it, it's called "The Manchurian Candidate: The Hypnotist Perspective," because it's about kind of getting into the deeper things of the subconsciousness of what these hypnotist guys were doing to post hypnotic suggestion. This is consistent with the studies that were taking place during the 50s.
Did
And
Bi-
so,
did he work with the American government? Did JFK know him?
not to my knowledge,
Mhm.
he was kind of affiliated with a lot of legal stuff. He had written books on legal aspects of hypnosis and religious aspects of hypnosis. He was friends with very well-known attorneys at the time. One who was involved in the O.J. Simpson trial, his name was uh, Bailey, and also Melvin Belli, who ended up being the attorney for Jack Ruby, who is the guy who shot Oswald. So William Joseph Bryan is in the background of many cases in a very shady way. He said he attended the trial of Garrison against Clay Shaw, that he was um in the in the in the proceedings. He's kind of a shady character. Died young, died at 50, but he died around the time where all of the investigations that were taking place, the investigations into what was going on in the 50s and 60s, were taking place in the US.
Was his death suspicious? Or was it just
Well, it's
natural cause?
young. I mean, at that
Mhm.
time, he was a big guy. He was over 300 pounds. I don't think he took care of his health. He became a hypodermic needle user or whatever of drugs. He was kind of like a mad scientist in a lot of ways. A lot of people started dying in the 70s suspiciously. There was like Johnny Rosselli he was a mobster, ended up in a 55-gallon drum. Some of these other mob bosses ended up dying. And so he was in that kind of same thing where, like, because people were asking questions, a lot of these guys ended up finding early deaths. So I would say the dying at 50 is dying an early death. So, but
Mhm.
Brian is mentioned in multiple sites as a consultant for the Manchurian Candidate. He's mentioned in multiple books. I mentioned the book by Fenton Bresler, which is the book about the Lenin assassination.
Mhm.
There's weird overlaps between a lot of these guys, and there's really a whole history of intelligence people bringing in. At that time, it was kind of a component of intel, is to really get into people's psychology and to get psychiatric, like high level psychiatrists to come in and assess and analyze people and get personality tests and these kind of things that were happening post World War II. And so he was one of many people involved in very curious ways of surrounding huge cases in America, not just JFK. And Brian is suspected to be not just a consultant on Manchurian Candidate, but the person involved in the handling of Sirhan Sirhan, who was the alleged killer of Robert F. Kennedy, That was 1968 at the
Oh,
Ambassador Hotel. And so he is tied into him in a big way. The locations and things, they sync up together because Sirhan was in LA and so was Brian.
that is a very close link. That's a very close sync, for him to be involved with Sirhan Sirhan.
If you go through a lot of the RFK literature, there's many books, many different people have written about RFK. They all mention Brian. They all say Brian is a suspect. They didn't have really good, he's a very shady guy, very cagey guy, but they all name him as a suspect, whether it's the book by Peace, Tim Tate, uh, Christian and Turner, these major books like O'Shaughnessy wrote, I think RFK Must Die. They all have sections on Brian. So he was right there, and he was involved in all. He was involved in like the My Lai events. He was involved in Manson. He's around Manson. He actually was a consultant to Kasabian. She was the one who was the kind of one who turned evidence and worked for the government.
Mm.
Brian is behind her, and he's a remarkable guy, kind of missing from history in a way, but still kind of coming around as people kind of see this as this like the assassination season is really on us in the last couple of years here in the
Mhm.
States again. It feels like the 60s again, where they're just trying to kill tons of people. I think Charlie Kirk is part of that
I'm j-
kind of assassination events. Yeah.
William, I'm just wondering, pre the book, pre 1962, or pre Gondon's book, Richard? What's his second name? Gondon?
Richard Condon,
Condon, yeah.
Condon, yeah.
Right, okay. But prior to his book, Richard's book, was there many assassinations in America happening?
No.
Was there a heightened level of paranoia? Was there just or
I think it was Cold War paranoia. I think it was actually ginned up by people like Dulles, like overvalued. But I think
Mhm.
that was kind of like the cover for the American empire that was growing, and still like the kind of like the I think that the American empire really was taking off. They were involved in overthrowing so many governments and involved in so many different things at the same time. So I think that that was this kind of Soviet propaganda was very effective on the American people, the Cold War and stuff like that, fears of nuclear bombs and things like that. So I think that, but there wasn't many assassination, and I've said in other interviews that that the Manchurian Candidate was like a watermark because after that, the '60s was just an assassination. We had major assassinations of major political, cultural figures in the '60s, some that are known, some that are unknown, but the major ones are obviously JFK, RFK, MLK, and Malcolm
Martin, Martin,
X.
Martin Luther King as well?
Correct. Yeah.
So the book was kind of prophetic in a weird sense.
Yes, there's absolutely no question about it, and it's interesting, like how Condon is lost from history. Like some of these important things, I think, are deliberately not emphasized by certain people because they reveal so much. And I think that Condon's book is a way he was trying, and JFK's involvement. They were saying this kind of stuff is happening in the background. People are studying this. They're studying these kind of hypnotic suggestions and how to tamper with things. And we know the kind of watermark of it's like MK Ultra was 53, but they were doing stuff before that. Even before that, there's a guy named Morse Allen, Project Artichoke, Monarch, Bluebird. They were doing other things, but it became formulated or formalized in 53. So I think that this is was kind of almost a means. You have to remember the internet didn't exist back then. So the only way people could get stuff out was through magazines, underground magazines, films, because there were only three channels, ABC, NBC, CBS. So those are all, you know,
Do you, do
points
you
where that can be handled. Yeah.
Do you think this is why JFK was encouraging Sinatra to make the movie, that he wanted the public to know a bit more? He knew about all these secret projects in the past, and he just had this, this urge to inform people in some kind of indirect way.
If you look at JFK and his life and his speeches, he had famous speeches at American University about peace, about conflict with the Soviet Union. He was kind of trying to, in my opinion, inform people about what was happening. I think he was kind of more like real transparency, and I think these components were it. So his friendship with Sinatra was very tight, very close. And after the mafia kind of stuff came out, they kind of separated maybe a little bit. But I think that this was it. 7 Days in May was also like this is what's happening in the background. JFK had trouble with everybody. He had trouble with the CIA, the intelligence, and the military. Like there's Operation Northwoods where they were gonna fake stuff and invade Cuba, and he's like, no way. But there was these really hardcore. He also fired another guy who Oswald supposedly took a shot at. I can't remember his name offhand, but some of these guys were really hardcore Cold Warriors. One is Curtis LeMay, who was like involved in bombing the living daylights out of Japan. They're all around JFK and they're all around the 60s and they're very hard right type people, like real,
Mhm.
convinced. And so I think JFK was dealing that. So I think this was his way to try to get information out that he couldn't have gotten out before. But he
What
might
do you
have
think?
sensed. I think he might have sensed that it was coming. He was supposed to be shot in Chicago before November 22nd, 63. He got wind of something was going on, and they had a kind of a fake patsy, kind of like Oswald there as well. An ex-military guy like Oswald was gonna like take the blame. He was warned off of it. He
Wait, you
claimed to
mean
be sick.
you mean JFK was meant to be shot in Chicago?
Yes, and they
Yeah,
had plots in Miami too. So.
can you explain that? I've never heard
Well,
that
I did a
before.
show on that. You can check it out at William Ramsey Investigates, but it was the precursor to really what happened November 22nd, 63. I'm trying to remember the guy's name is Patsy was but he was in place and he had all the kind of indicators of Oswald actually. But let me see if I can find this.
Mhm.
His name was Thomas Arthur Valee. Three names, like all this other stuff.
Did he get
But that
arrested?
Yeah, so like it has a background all to itself. There was like a
Wow.
African American Secret Service agent who Abraham can't remember his last name, who was like, "Hey guys, something weird is going on." JFK got wind of it, didn't go to Chicago, and then that Secret Service agent they like ruined his career. Like he ended up in jail and he got besmirched. I think he actually got some kind of Medal of Freedom. But it's another one of the strange side pieces to the kind of JFK lore or events or stuff like that. Is this Vali guy in Chicago?
William, what what do you what do you make of the motive, the Queen of Diamonds? Why was that card? Was there ever any explanation? Did Gondam ever give an explanation why he used that as a motive to trigger the Richard Shaw character?
Yeah, Raymond Shaw. They
Raymond Shaw,
they
excuse
they
me.
explains it in the book. So Yen Lo is kind of like the avatar for all of this kind of mind control research. That's the character, the kind of Asian looking guy. But he said, and then there's the military psychologist as well, and the military psychiatrist who's played by an African American guy. I can't remember his name, but he explains that they selected the Queen of Diamonds because of Raymond's antipathy towards his mom. So they knew that that was going to symbolize his kind of like Oedipal type stuff. And they in the book, it's very graphic. Like they clearly have, like she's having incest with her mind controlled son, and he's freaked out about it. And so it's shown in the book. In the film, it's not shown, but she's also been. It's like intergenerational abuse because she was raped by her dad starting at age 10. But yeah, so they explain it very clearly in um in the book in the book and the film why the Queen of Diamonds was selected by this guy Dr. Yen Lo to be the trigger.
What do you think of Raymond's Shaw's mother? What do you think of her as a figure? What does she indicate? What does she represent in your view?
Well, according to Condon, he used this she was supposed to symbolize Livia, who was the head of the Julian dynasty in of emperors in Rome. She was really a conniving poisoner. Like a lot of people around her sons died. suspicious deaths, early deaths. So he used her. Her name was Eleanor Island. He used Livia and also Roy Cohn, who is actually kind of a consigliere, or one time was, for Donald Trump, and was involved in the McCarthyism of the 50s. He was right there behind McCarthy. And he was a blackmailer. He was into dark, very dark stuff, and very manipulative. So that's what Condon used to kind of use as a kind of character backdrop for Eleanor Island, who's really the schemer. And I think she gives away her power mad character right there at the end. Like, we're going to shoot them, and then we're going to take the blood and the microphone, and we're going to come to power. And I don't care if you were raped, but we're going to come to power, and then we're going to get everybody. So,
Are the
yeah.
characters in the movie, do they represent the characters in the book or do they differ slightly in their?
No, I think they were very, I think Frankenheimer and these guys were very true to the book. Whereas the second one that was done with Denzel Washington in 2004, they only just had a title. They didn't follow the book at all. But even Frankenheimer in a recorded interview said we're doing Condon, and there's direct lines right out of the book right into the film. Like, I can literally get a copy of the book and then just read them, doing the lines right there. Yen Lo's repeating these lines. The same kind of some of these are real, you know, academic mind control studies, and it's all there. Like, they just put it right across. So there's a lot of repetitive, like the guy who supposedly adapted the screenplay, Axelrod, he didn't have to work very hard because he just used all the dialogue straight out of the book.
The character that's married to Shaw's mother, does he represent McCarthy? Would he be like
Yeah, yeah.
who was Joseph McCarthy? Can you talk about him? Who was
Well,
the
he was
senator?
kind of like he's a right winger. He thought this communist scare was a legit thing, and he was seen to be irresponsible in the way of like targeting communists. And I think that Senator Island reflected that,
How
where
do
he
you mean
couldn't, well, he couldn't
irresponsible?
come up with the actual numbers. He would just make accusations. There's 200 communists in this thing, and there's 55. And then she does NLP on him, so he'll remember it's 57. So he's just blurting it out. And I think McCarthy was kind of like that. There were communists, and there's still communists in America right now. They just rebranded themselves as social democrats or something. But
His wife is very patronizing to him. She disrespects him a lot. Like she
oh,
tells him at one
100%.
stage, "Look, your job is not to think. Your job is just to do what I tell you to do." So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he's a stooge. He's kind of a goofball and a drunk. And played in the book as well. That's kind of his character. She's
mhm.
really the kind of driving force. She's really something else, yeah.
Raymond Shaw, even in the movie, he comes across as very one-dimensional. However, the love interest that he has, you see a different side to him, and he changes. He completely changes when he's with what's her name, Jocelyn?
Jocelyn, yeah.
Jocelyn, yeah. And you see a different side to him. And I'm not, without giving away the plot, if anybody hasn't seen this movie or read this book, what he does to her and to her dad really shows you the level of what of his brainwashing, really shows you the power of how he's been hypnotized to do what he's going to do. But at the end, he seems to break free from that. And in the final scene, what he does to he even goes against the army and the military, and he takes the actions into his own hands. What do you think of that? How did he free himself from that brainwashing?
Well, I don't think he freed himself. I think Marco Sinatra helped him. So he figured out the trigger and the code word. And he got a loaded deck of all Queen of Diamonds. And
Hmm.
then he's under programming him. And you don't really see that it's worked. You don't know that it's worked until he decides to kill his mom and his stepdad. And then kill himself. And it's actually kind of ties back to everything that happened in Manchurian Candidate, because there's like programming to commit suicide. So whether it's kind of left up to the viewer But I think that it was really Marco that figured it out, and then he broke free. I think that's really was it. He was supposed to shoot the other senator. I forgot what his name was though.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra. He's acting in the movie, and he comes across as, I thought he did a good performance in the movie. He comes across well in the movie. What do you think about his? I think he was going through a divorce at the time in real life when he was making that movie, and a lot of his acting, I think he tapped into that, whatever that emotion that he was going through. What did you think of his performance?
Thought he was good. I don't think he's a great actor, but he's good enough to do that. I think that there was a lot of stuff going under the surface. I think Lee got served divorce papers. So there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff going on. But I think Angela Lansbury really stole the entire film. But I mean, he got paid the most. I think that of the budget, it
Got
was a $2.2 billion budget, and he
got
got
half it,
paid.
didn't he?
Yeah, yeah. So he made out like a bandit. It wasn't a money maker. The film wasn't a big money maker in the movies, but it's it stands the test of time. It's still good. It's still great to watch. A great 2 hours of your time. The way that it's constructed, the shooting, the sequences, the way it comes together, the themes behind it, political assassinations, the search for a patsy, the handlers, the skilled and sophisticated mind controller slash intellects behind it, kind of like a William Joseph Bryan. William Joseph Bryan had 3 degrees. He had 3 postgraduate degrees. He had like a medical degree, a JD, and something else. Like the guy was a crazy genius.
How old was
Um,
he when he died? Did you say 50?
50, yeah.
Mm. So when Raymond Shaw when he was referred to as the kindest, warmest, and bravest individual by some of the other characters in the movie, and they were all, I'm presuming, hypnotized as well to be able to, because they referred to him as that because he didn't come across that, and he didn't come across as being that type of person. What do you make of that? What
Yeah,
significance was
Raymond
that?
Shaw is the kindest, bravest, warmest, most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life. So two of the characters who were on his 11 person kind of unit repeat
Hmm.
that in the film. And I think that post hypnotic suggestion works on certain people. So I think that there's like a scale of how hypnotizable you are or suggestible. And so I think that these are reflecting some of this stuff. Like she literally, Eleanor Island's character shows that you can kind of program people to remember stuff through visuals and things like that. That's why her, fuddy-duddy husband remembers 57 communists because he was holding 57 Heinz 57 ketchup. And so I think that these guys have had some kind of post-hypnotic suggestion that is influencing their decision making, or at least words or things, their memories. And you've seen that played out. Like they live literally there. I mean, Sirhan can't even remember events. He has time spatial problems. He's easily hypnotized. He's easily put into a suggestible state, almost like at the snap of a finger.
Same
Like
with Mark
he is
Chapman.
absolutely. So you see that these are playing out in actual real life events, and these people who undergo personality change too, like a serious personality change, and also the legend creation. So somebody's creating these kind of fictional stories about these people's lives that aren't consistent with reality, much like Raymond Shaw, who they know they're going to get him the Medal of Honor. Like they know that this is all going to come into place where he's going to become a national hero and all this other stuff. So this fictional lead up to the assassinations are all plotted, much like the legend of the R.B. Oswald, who literally, like Raymond Shaw, went to the like Iron Curtain and then pops back to the U.S. as a kind of communist. It's totally fake, but he has all kinds of military intel background. And Oswald was a small time player, but he was clearly being handled much like Raymond Shaw.
Do you think Oswald did it with
No,
Kennedy?
no, not even close. No way.
What do you think happened there? I was listening to an interview with I think it was Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly, I think it was, and he's fully convinced that
Oswald
Oswald
did it.
did it. Yeah. So there's
Yeah,
a lot
he's
of
a
the.
state actor. He's a clown. Uh,
Mhm.
he's he hasn't.
Who do you think did? I heard that Lyndon Johnson was supposed to have
I
been
think they all
involved.
did it. I think they
Mhm.
all did it. I think the CIA, the military, who had the power to cover it up, the elites in the United States, they had no friends. The JFK, the Kennedys were seen as kind of like aliens, Catholic, Irish, whereas this country's been run by wasps, Protestant wasps from the get-go, I suppose. I don't think there were any Catholics until the Kennedys. So I think
Mhm.
that they alienated everybody too. Like they were not, I think that's personal. Like I really think that's why they blew his head off in public. So I think that they probably had, just like they said in the film JFK, they probably had a bunch of snipers, people who survived the Bay of Pigs, who were very angry, and they put him into place and they blew his head off and they shot a lot of people after it too. Because once they killed JFK, there was just a huge cleanup operation of all these people dying. Like it's
Mhm.
literally like a list of like 50 people died at least, all the way
Mhm.
up for decades. So like they were establishing that this was the story. So I think that, but the real probably kingpin of the whole thing is probably Alan Dulles, who was fired by JFK in 61. And the reason being Alan Dulles is because his involvement in the Warren Commission, like literally sitting in the Warren Commission, making sure
Mhm.
that this is the story.
Making sure
And
nobody knew.
that the story was that Oswald was the bad guy. And they were just the amount of resources that they were able to put together to maintain the fiction of the Oswald lone nut shooter. They're all lone nuts, which you should be like really suspicious just at first glance that why they're all lone nuts. But um, the amount of resources boggles the mind because there are just so many things. Time Life is doing this. They're paying money to get the Zapruder film. People are getting shot. There's fake stories all over the place. And it just shows like how powerful the intel people here in the States were to just hammer that story. And people believed it. Like it's a lot easier story to believe than that there was kind of like a coup. And I think Garrison, who ended up trying to prosecute Raymond Shaw. It's interesting that there's two Shaws in this whole story, but Shaw from Louisiana said it was like killing Caesar, and I think that was it. So if you go back and look at the death of Caesar, it was a broad conspiracy. It involved all these members of the Senate. It wasn't just Brutus or any of these other. They all stabbed him, and they all took part in it,
They all
and they
took
all dipped
turns.
and they all dipped their blood. So they knew what the stakes were. And I think something like that happened with all these people is like, we're all in it together. You're all going to dip your blood. We're all going to share in the consequences and we're all going to shut up and stick together. And I think that's what really happened. I think they
Do you
knew what
think
they were in for.
do you think RFK knows? RFK who's currently in
Junior or
junior,
RFK?
junior, who's currently in
I think
government.
he's very aware. I think he has to know everything. He doesn't think Sirhan did it to his dad.
Well,
And I don't think he did either. I mean, the real guy is this guy Thane Eugene Caesar, which is kind of similar to the Kirk assassination because suddenly becomes a security guard and gets inserted into this environment like 3 weeks. Yeah, I think he was a security guard for 3 weeks. Then he disappears and goes to Philippines and lives out the rest of his life. Like, and he hated RFK. And even Noguchi, who was the medical examiner, who was actually kind of a straight arrow, in my opinion, medical examiner for the Los Angeles, said the kill shot for RFK came like from 3 or 2 inches from the back of his head.
mm,
So I think that RFK Jr., you know, he has to focus on certain things to get what he wants to do, and so people keep quiet. But I think
mhm,
he knows. I mean, he's a veteran of left wing politics, and so, a lot of these assassinations were heavily studied by the left here in the states because most of these people who died were part of the left wing movements. So I think that they're very aware. I mean, there's House committees on the assassination. It's very smart people. Like I've had a lot of them on my podcast who've studied this stuff in great detail. It's almost like its own kind of like genres at JFK stays. There's so many podcasts about it these days, specific on it. There's still things going on. JFK Facts, Jefferson Morley. They're still divulging papers up until this, till 2025. So I think a lot of that information, more and more, is coming out that's validating, broader conspiracy, not lone nut. And Oswald, I mean, it's back into the left, just like Oliver Stone says in JFK. The shot, like JFK's head shoots back. We've seen the video. Like it has to come from the front. There were more bullets. I think that there were like 20 bullets flying. I don't think it's three magic bullets. Like this is preposterous stuff. So
But
they can
most
make you
people,
believe a lie. I mean, they're doing it right now with Charlie Kirk. The
Mhm.
same things are happening.
But-
Mystery rifle gets found.
mhm.
Multiple people are moving away. There's bungled AI video that's been adapted or adjusted. The story doesn't add up. The guy has no background. Like Oswald had no, like he supposedly like beat up his wife, but there's no kind of like statements of ultra violence or anything from the guy, is my understanding. So you
Just
see that same thing with the Patsy, Tyler Robinson. Yeah.
before I was going to ask you about Charlie Kirk in a moment, but before I ask you about him, just going back to JFK, most of the people that were involved in that, anyways, directly and indirectly, I guess they're all dead by now. Even if RFK were to go after a few of these, who's alive? Is there are there many people
Nobody,
still? Yeah,
no,
there you go.
no.
Yeah.
I think that that's why people can talk about it now, because you couldn't talk about it back in the day. You could end up dead or have your career destroyed or just people tampering with it. But I think that because all of the people involved in JFK's death are gone,
Do you think we'll ever know the whole truth?
I don't know. Maybe somebody has some of the information somewhere, or things stored away, or like switches. If they die, they release it. But maybe the whole truth. I think that the right knew the full truth all from the beginning. Like they knew the people who showed up to kill him, how people got away, the cover up, and all the resources. Because they really hated the Kennedys. They really didn't. These guys really hated their guts.
Mhm.
And the Kennedys didn't do stuff to like keep friends. It didn't seem like. So I think
Mhm.
that I think that information. I'm not privy to it. I'm not part of the Eastern elite
You
or
know,
intel. So, but I bet these guys know. Somebody knows the story. I've had when I was in D.C. This is like 30 years ago, but I was talking to people about JFK. I didn't know anything back then, and I was talking to these guys from like, you know, wealthy families with intergenerational money. And they were looking at me like, yes, you're right about that. And they're like, nope, nope, nope. So they knew. I didn't understand that till later if I walked away from them, but I was like, they knew all the details
they
of
knew.
they knew the details of the JFK assassination. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because you said earlier on about JFK and the Kennedys being Irish and Catholic, and the guy that was driving the car, excuse me, the guy that was in the back seat and who turned around with the gun, I forget his name, but he actually came from Northern Ireland and he came from a Protestant, he was one of the Protestants up in Northern Ireland. So I don't know how
The
significant that is, but I think it's very coincidental, isn't it? That
At
he's
that time, that time in American history is very different. Like here, the kind of Protestant Catholic tension, they're still kind of there. But back in the day, people would fight. They would have brawls. They really,
Mhm.
Catholics were seen as a kind of baleful influence, the Pope. Um, there's a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot more racism. Like things have improved on those things. Like people, there's still tension and stuff, but like it was bad. Like they shot, I think one of the civil rights leaders was 62, who was killed. So there was a lot of like lynchings and really bad stuff happening. And part of that was also this anti-Catholic kind of view. I grew up Catholic. My dad was Catholic. He just remembers those times as like really much more tension between the kind of Catholics and the Protestants. Maybe reflected more in Ireland more these days, but back then it was a real thing. So I think that was part of the equation of why Kennedy got killed.
Mhm. William, I was going to ask you about Charlie Kirk, but you answered a few of my questions earlier on, or will you said a few things there that I was going to ask you about Tyler Robinson. You don't think that he actually like what my question there is why did his dad drive him to the police station? What, what,
It's
how,
all turning out to be fake. That's the whole thing, is like he
really?
never admitted. Yeah, he never admitted it. It's clearly Charlie Robinson's not thought shot with a 30-06. That's fake. He would have blown his head off. 30-06 takes down like huge
So his
animals.
his dad didn't drive him to the police
That's
station?
my understanding, is that they're disputing that. He is not even making public statements. Like, why is this happening? It's been a month. What's going on with him?
Hmm.
Um, I think that, and it's very strange. Like, he's not from that area, Orem. He's from southwestern Utah. And his stories, like the story that he about his lover and his trans, that was going to be the cover, is that this is some kind of trans assault, on Charlie Kirk. Some of that stuff's fake. Like his whole story that he texted his lover, I did it, and all this stuff like that. It was written by AI. Like people have put it through AI. Was this drafted by somebody or AI? And they're like, oh, it's AI. And it doesn't sound like somebody from that age either. It's like totally fake. It doesn't have the right terms
What
and stuff.
what do you think the motive was? So why was he killed?
For political reasons, I think for a lot of reasons. I think what happened, there's a huge sea change happening in the U.S. that used to be supportive of Israel and supportive of the American empire, and it's really changed because of these wars and also the visuals of seeing this genocide take place in Gaza. And so the support for this has really diminished people, and they've lost really the younger group, like the people under 30 are uniformly against Israel. I think it's probably 80 or 90%. It's a huge sea change, because it used to be 50-50, or the Israelis could, or the Jews. It's really international Jewry, but they could kind of convince people we're fighting against the Muslims, and we're a bulwark against terrorism and those arguments. But then when you see the savage destruction of like kids, like it's really child murder. Like it's incredible what's going on in Gaza. I think they've lost that. So I think they're really like they used to have the kind of uniform support. And so I think that like they've lost significant influencers on the right. So Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Kirk was on the ropes. And so I think that in a certain way, the American empire needs to sustain itself through war and money making. Like the long term war in Ukraine the intent is to have a long term war, so that the money flows can continue. So it's like this war pig violent stuff. And so people who are against this and want to shut that down. That's why Trump was elected. He's betrayed his entire base. Also, no Epstein files. So I think Kirk was an example. I actually was saying earlier this year, somebody's going to get killed in the alternative media or the new media. I didn't think it would be Kirk, but they don't like the freedom. They don't like the loss of control. And I think a lot of people are thinking for themselves. A lot of these guys have left like control centers, or left these people and gone independent. So like Tucker Carlson's a perfect example.
Hmm.
Like this is a guy who's on Fox News. He's, has a his background's pretty interesting. He glows, or his dad's clearly working for Intel.
Hmm.
And he decides to leave Fox News and starts up his own gig and does really well. Like he's
Hmm.
really has a lot of listeners, and he does interesting shows, probably better work than he ever did at Fox, actually,
Hmm.
um, to his credit. So this independent kind of thing, it kind of comes back. It's like Parallax View or whatever. The another great political assassination film, 1974, Warren Beatty were the lead. Another senator shot.
What's it called?
Parallax View, the
I don't
Parallax
know. Yeah.
View.
Hmm.
Yeah, watch it. It's about Patsy creation too, much like Manchurian Candidate. I did another show on that. It's called The Parallax View of the Charlie Kirk Assassination. But the lead senator at the very beginning, the first assassination, he goes, "People have said I'm independent, and I say I'm too independent for my own good." And then he gets shot, so he's independent. So I think that they're losing the narrative control, and this kind of newfound independence is unnerved a lot of very powerful people. I'll just leave it at that. That's why he was killed. It's they could have killed him at home. This is the same thing like JFK. Like they could have killed JFK at the White House, poisoned him, or did something like facilitate his death. He was not in great health. He was semi-frail. He was always on drug. He had Addison's disease. He's on steroids, and Dr. Feelgood's giving him shots of meth and stuff. Like they could have
Hmm.
just overdosed him or something, you know. Instead, it's public, and so I think that the Kirk is also public for a reason. Like, hey, you guys toe the line. Don't get, you know. And I think that there's also there's like things that go on behind the surface, influencers and malevolent influence, and Kirk was surrounded by that, and he may not have known how deep he was involved in that. So I think
Hmm.
that that's kind of it. Like there are other people who are just independent researchers are doing their own thing in Florida or something like that, but Charlie Kirk was really a politicized influencer, talking to the president, talking to a lot of people, and chain kind of he was kind of actually kind of like Malcolm X in a way, because Malcolm X was also kind of came out of kind of a really smart guy, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of came out of Black Panther type stuff or the Nation of Islam,
Hmm.
and then he started to morph. He started to like see things differently. Like, hey, maybe I should leave the Nation of Islam. I
He
don't trust
remained
this guy.
he remained a
What's it?
Muslim. He remained a Muslim though,
Right, but
Malcolm
it's a
X.
different Nation of Islam is kind of like a subset of Muslim behavior,
Hmm.
like thing. It's more of like it's not the core religious text. It's kind of like a African American cultish offshoot. The guy Elijah Muhammad who was running the thing was kind of like Jim Jones. I won't say it's that bad, but there was some pretty dark stuff he was involved in. And I think that
Hmm.
Malcolm X he was morphing into kind of a more independent person. I think that that's kind of it. And the same thing actually happened to Martin Luther King. He was a civil rights leader who then like started saying, "Hey, Vietnam's bad." Like that's what Charlie Kirk was doing, right? He was like, "Hey, this whole thing in Gaza is really bad," and like,
Hmm.
well, you can't say that, you know. So some of these people are, you got to toe the line to a certain extent. They're still doing it right now. You're seeing this. The Charlie Kirk consequences are going to be tecton like a plate shift of tectonic sizes in the United
I-
States.
in what sense? Because I was going to ask you, what is the current vibe in America? What is the current, what is the atmosphere like? Like, yeah, I've got this image going back to the movie again of the Manchurian Candidate. You know, when Raymond Shaw is he's got this real tense look, and he's got this like real sterny-eyed expression on his face. What's the atmosphere in America? What are people like?
It's like the 60s again, you know? Everybody knows that the Kirk story is baloney. And it's really strange too because Trump and Cash Patel and all these other guys, Bongino, were brought in to try, like, that's what the American people wanted was to go after corruption and this stuff. And now they're just like the same, like J. Edgar Hoover. Like, why do you, he literally, Guy Cash Patel is saying you're a conspiracy theorist for asking questions. Whenever they say conspiracy theorist, you know there's something wrong. Like, whenever they call you a conspiracy theorist when you're asking questions, they should just say, none of these questions are valid, but it's like a pejorative way to degrade like a person's thought processes and asking questions. There's so much suspicious stuff about Charlie Kirk. The guy Zinn who was there, who like said it's me. Like there's so many plants and things in the. It's just like the JFK assassination.
Mhm.
But I think the environment's very. I think the public's on edge. I think they know that something's going on. There's been so many assassinations and so many weird things going on. I can't even list it. They tried to kill Nick Fuentes, who's also kind of American firster. That guy was strange. Like, why did he go after Nick Fuentes? How did he know where he lived in Chicago? You had Mangione, who's in trial. For some reason, this guy's like has a great future, great past, like privileged kid. Somehow gives it all away to go shoot some guy in New York City. He goes from a Wahoo, like I got to go kill somebody in New York. Why? So there's that guy. There's Ruth with a strange background. Crooks, nobody knows anything about him. So all these assassinations are almost like Raymond Shaw or Oswald, where there's you have strange things, and those are that's just like a short list. There's like a list of like so many people, and there's like a strange occult, like there's occult numerology in this in the book and the film, and their blood
In the movie, what for example?
absolutely. Oh yeah, well there's 11 guys in the original squad, so
Hmm.
that's like the numerology.
That's when they were
um
in the House of ill repute. That's when they were in the when they
Right.
were
And
part.
also when they were being programmed or whatever in Manchuria, there's literally like 11 of that squad. And then when Raymond Shaw is drawing his cards at the bar, before he goes and jumps in the lake in Central Park, their guy in the background says, "For 11 long years, I've had to put up with this guy." So Condon knew the kind of numbers of 9/11 too. Like he knew it. There's a 9/11 in the book. There's when Marco has his first dream, it's at 3/11.
Yeah.
That's it. So
He
like
he
that's
wakes up at 3:11.
mhm.
Mm.
There's also she wants her steak as Iselin. Eleanor Iselin wants her steak cooked at 11 minutes each side. Nobody wants their steak cooked that much. You basically have it till almost carbonized. Um, so like these are all suffused through the film, so it's really something else. But yeah,
What?
so when they said when they busted Tyler Robinson, we got a 33-hour, time span. Like these are like Masonic numerology. Like what the hell are they talking about?
Mhm.
So those are symbols. Those are like nods to insiders and stuff like that. So it's really dark. Actually, the Kirk assassination is a dark assassination for the future because they killed the future in killing Kirk. He was only 31. He'd already incredible influence from like I didn't know a lot of I'm like from a different generation, but I
Mhm.
didn't know how important he was to that rising generation.
Mhm.
And he was an
Yeah.
important like focal point. So you killed like the future. Like who knows? Like Candace Owens saying like Charlie Kirk's gonna be the next president, and he's
Mhm.
exuberant, he's smart enough, and he's
Mhm.
experienced with like um he's experienced with like public relations. We're a very important component of
Public
political
talking. Yeah.
stuff is like to be in front of the camera and well spoken. And he was already experienced at the age of 31. And they
Mhm.
knew people around him knew he was important and going to be important. His business, the Turning Point, generated $80 million a year. It's huge.
Mhm.
Over
Yeah.
10 years, that's like $1 billion. That means that the company, like, if you did just off the cuff estimations, evaluations, it's $1 billion company
Mhm.
because it's raising that much. So, um, and you can see the lead up to the Kirk assassination when you walk back the cat is very much like JFK. You see the kind of steps. Oh, he's starting to have questions. Oh, he's starting wanting to invite Tucker. He wants to be with Candace. He's a little too independent for his own good. He's starting to do stuff. And then there's like research recently has come out where people are looking at search terms. And these Google search terms are incredible because people are searching stuff 2 months before the events of September 10th. So they're like, hospital in Utah from Israel and from DC. Who's the doctor? Like they're doing research online. So
So who was
the
doing the research? Could they
well, they
pinpoint it?
they don't. Nobody wants to disclose the. I
Hmm.
mean, I bet the NSA knows. So the
Yeah. Yeah.
NSA could find out the what is it, the IP address.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
But
The location.
yeah. So who's
Well.
doing that? How do they know? Like, how do they know all this stuff? Why are they interested? That was the first September 10th was the first stop of his college tour that he was doing. So it was like he had he had planned. This. It was known that he was going to be there,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's really
Uh,
dark. It's very dark.
yeah. It was. Well, when I saw it online when it happened after about like 10 or 15 minutes, or well, an hour, I guess. And man, it was shocking. It was just so shocking. When you say there's going to be tectonic shifts in America, like the last time,
Tectonic, yeah, yeah.
the, the, la-
It's not going to change. They can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste thing. It's over. So
Mhm.
people are going to be like, "Whoa, this is how it's going to end? Is you're
But
going to start assassinating political figures again?"
but do
Because
you mean
like
it's do you mean it's going to go into a positive way or a negative way when you say
negative.
the
Oh,
shifts?
absolutely negative.
So,
Absolutely.
hmm.
People are going to. The thing is that uh, it's already filtering. Like the clouds are filtering, and you can see the collusion and the coordination post the assassination. So, like, why aren't you telling the story? Why aren't you trying to figure out what really happened? Like, these are tells. These are like tells. Like, why aren't you trying to figure out the real story? Because this story doesn't make sense. This
Mhm.
Tyler Robinson guy with the 30-06. It's why do you have it's provable that it's not a 30-06. So then they're lying. There's all kinds of things going on at that time. There's weird people in the audience. There's high-tech drones over the top. John Cullen has found like spy planes operating in Utah. There's people turning off their transponders. Like there's all kinds of like mis and disinformation. Blood. I mean, it's the same thing like JFK. This they did this after 9/11 too, where they just polluted the waters like right away with all kinds of. It's like a psyop. So the psychological operations guys are out there in full force. Why? And then you have to ask yourself the question: why are they out there in full force?
Mhm.
Like they're to me, they're obvious. Like I can't believe some of these other idiots, like they can't like perceive that these guys are disinformation specialists. Like you can like I can tag them with my own brain, but these people are like, oh really? Oh geez, yeah, no blood. Oh my God. It's like
Mhm.
they don't understand. Like that's the whole thing of the history of the past assassinations informs the present one. So all everything that happened in the 60s, or even this kind of even this movie or the parallax view are very important.
William, last question before I leave you. Why should anybody out there go and watch this 1962 movie? And why should they read the book? You've certainly persuaded me to go and get the book on Kindle now this weekend, actually. The movie was great. I would really recommend anybody to watch the movie. The 1962 movie was fantastic, especially it started getting really good for me anyways, around the middle of it. And then it started really getting good. Why would you encourage somebody to watch this movie or buy this book?
It's a masterpiece. It's really one of the greatest pieces of American cinema in our history. It's really a piece of world cinema. And so I think the shooting, the technical skill, the narrative, it's almost like a mystery thing, like you're trying to figure out what's going on. So it unravels to you that this whole purpose of Shaw is to be an assassin, and he's being handled. So you see that Condon has taken things from the real world, put them into fiction, but they're I did a talk fiction as fact. Like these are he's smart. Like he this isn't a guy, and it's also he's including some of the known things of kind of literal mind control, NLP, post hypnotic suggestion, handling, medical facilities that externally look normal, but they have wings in them. These are very common things. These happen at McGill, Georgetown, Tulane, almost every major facility was turned to like having these kind of like wings and side things that have all been hidden from history. But Condon seemed to know about it. So credit my hat. I tip my hat to Condon as a really great source. There's a reason why he wrote the intro to Operation Mind Control that came out that was written by Bauer. So that element of it. So like some like people have called this a piece of entertainment, and I think that's the genre or the category. But some entertainment is trying to reveal to you some of the stuff that happens, whether it's Eyes Wide Shut or maybe other intrigue stuff or stories like 3 Days of the Condor, where they're trying to expose, espionage and global politics, geopolitics, and the dark side of that, the global octopus. And I think this is one of those movies in that genre that the involvement of JFK, literally what happened to JFK is rhymes with this film. So there's very many reasons why you should watch this movie. And they're all very good reasons. So check out the Manchurian Candidate. 62. If you want to see a piece of bad cinema, watch the one with Denzel Washington, who I love Denzel Washington, but it's not anywhere close. It's like it's nowhere close to this, to the greatness of the original 62 Manchurian Candidate.
William, thank you very much for coming on Views from Underground. And where can people find your links?
Yeah, my podcast is in the top to like 20,000 podcasts in the world. William Ramsey Investigates. I've done a lot of different talks on Manchurian Candidate. People are getting sick of me talking about it, but I probably never stop talking about it. It's still relevant. I also have a website, William Ramsey Investigates. You can get my books from there. I have 5 books. I have 5 documentaries on my Patreon. So I've been really busy posting some of my old research on Patreon, not just about Manchurian Candidate, but just stuff I've done on West Memphis 3 or Crowley or 9/11, so it's all there. But thanks for having me back. It's great to talk with you.
Thank you very much, William. Thank you very much.